good. How are you, Carrie? Nice to get to see you again.
You too.
How's your day so far?
You know, it's been an interesting day today.
Well, I would like
I
to
was
hear
waiting
more.
for I was waiting for my ride to the office and it didn't come. So I thought, well, maybe I'll just put my pajamas back on and just relax today. And then I got your message. Let's do the
Okay.
video today.
Well,
How's it
um,
going?
well, my slogan of today and every day pretty much is seize the day or carpe diem. I think that's how they say it in Latin.
Carpe
And
diem. Yeah.
yeah, I wanted to seize you in a way or another because, it's unpredictable what might happen next week in terms of like your
Right.
obligations and commitments and we are teachers, so you never know what happens in the next day. So I wanted to seize
Absolutely.
this opportunity to just chat for like 5-10 minutes and shed some light on important and insightful comments that you will definitely enrich us with. But first, I want to ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself, why you chose to be a teacher, what kind of inspiration in your mind that just made you become a teacher, and your beginning as an English teacher.
That's a long question to answer.
Well, it's a
But
clustered question.
yeah, you know, it's interesting. My original degree was in sociology criminology before I got my teaching certification through
Interesting.
Cambridge. Yes. So long story and very short, in a nutshell.
Uh-huh.
I started teaching straight out of university in the United States, and I taught for 4 years, youth at risk, kids, reading, reciprocal reading techniques, and all of the kids at this place I was teaching at
Mhm.
were at the last being removed from their schools. So it was like young ages up to like
Mhm.
teenagers. So I taught for 4 years doing that, then did social work. And while I was doing social work, I volunteered for a refugee agency in the United States.
Mhm.
And I taught as an ESL tutor. And I would go into their homes and end up working with the whole family to teach them English
Mhm.
and also just to help them acclimate to the United States. So I got my passion maybe about 2 years doing that, and I really decided I just wanted a big change. And I knew about Iraq and it had been on my heart to come, and I thought, English
Mhm.
is the way to help people. I'm not with any other agency, but to teach English,
Mhm.
that's actually going to benefit people. So I thought that would be great to take it to Iraq. So I did. In 2008, I came to Baghdad.
Okay, well, at some point in your career, you reach a bottleneck in terms of decision making, especially with the
Right.
expectations of instability and security complications in Iraq. So, what made you decide on that tipping point? What made you to decide to book a ticket one way to Iraq and settle here and start teaching English?
That's a deep question, Waleed. Um, well, in 2003, I saw what had happened, and it was really on my heart to help in some way.
Uh-huh.
And so it had been on my heart for a long time to help. And like I said, my experience was in teaching and teaching English.
Mm-hmm.
And I really felt called to come here and teach. And by the way, Global English Institute is the one center that was actually open at that time,
Yeah.
utilizing and using native English speakers.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they've been open since 2004, the English, and they've had native English speakers since. So I just came in after some others have been here for a while
Well,
to
I think,
assist. So it's
yeah,
definitely a calling.
I definitely think Global English Institute is deep-rooted and reputable center or institute for delivering quite cutting-edge sort of training to Iraqi students. And this leads me to my next question. What have you found different about Iraqi students in terms of their learning and your approach to teach them?
Okay. So one thing I learned, and again, when you're trees, you actually, once you get to know the people, that's when you can actually, especially the students, identify their needs. One thing I found out early on, teaching in Iraq, how many years of English study have you gone through, Waleed? How many years of English study?
Well, starting from the 5th elementary school, I mean, since I was born in 1986, so I was in the old kind of generation of students who took the early learning in 5th elementary school. But it was not as solid and clear and straightforward as it is right now. We just started with the alphabet and the basic words with terrible, terrible pronunciation, because at that time, you know, we didn't have enough access to technology to hear native speakers enunciate certain words. So we just depended on the on the spelling of our teachers and their pronunciation, when it just deformed the majority of our pronunciation actually. But let's say roughly 15 years.
So in your opinion, and I've taken polls in every class since 2008, and it's about the average length of English studies here is about, would you say 12 years?
Yeah, well, we can say give and take. 12 to 15 years, yeah.
Right, so I found that a majority of the students, they've already learned the base grammar. In fact, they could probably teach some native English speakers the grammar, because we're innate, when we're speaking our language, it's innate in us. Meaning we just have learned it before we've learned to speak before we learn the grammar.
Yeah, acquisition versus learning, versus you know, learning the language.
Right. So what I found is that many of the students, they know the English here, but they don't know how to speak it and use it in conversation and use it in the language. So that is one thing. It's like in our classes, a lot of it is just we review the language, but we also train and teach the students on how to use it.
So this leads me to my next, I'm sorry to cut you in. This leads me to my next question. Assuming that you found a magic spell to help them speak English, how do you incorporate your techniques and your experience in having students or maximizing students' engagement and speaking in the classroom?
That's a wonderful question, because that's the most important part of language learning, not the lecturing where the teacher stands in front and does all the talking. It needs to be the student talk time that's the most. One thing I found, you went back to the beginning, one thing I've identified as a key to learning here and teaching here is building the students' confidence in their abilities.
Which is psychological more than pedagogic or language related.
So with that, I make sure, and a lot of the teachers here at GER are the same, we make sure that students feel free to make errors and mistakes in their language, to just be free and speak. You know, get over that fear of speaking and trying to be perfect in their mind, because that takes time in language. As you said, there's not a magic wand that we can actually wave. Students need to take time and make mistakes.
So I often get this kind of question bombarding my page online. On average, how much time should I spend learning English from the beginning? So,
oh my gosh, I didn't expect this question. Because it could discourage some people, you know, some students. It just depends on their goal. Like if they're wanting to achieve fluency, right? True fluency is being able to speak smoothly, right? And being understood. And it's not just that, it's also being able to understand others around the world speaking English. It's not just American English or British English.
Okay, so English this leads me this leads me on my train of thought and asking you that kind of question. I'm sorry,
Sure.
but I'm bombarding you with so many questions.
No, it's okay.
But it's definitely insightful to hear your thoughts about this kind of thing. And I'm pretty sure, according and through your career, you have come across so many questions that are similar to this one, and
Right.
that is, can non-native speakers achieve fluency? And if yes, how, according to your experience?
Absolutely, they can achieve fluency. I achieved fluency when I learned Spanish. Of course, I don't have it now. I've lost it because I haven't used it. So it is definitely possible to achieve fluency. Now, proficiency might be something different, correct? Proficiency is more like accuracy in the language.
Of course.
That may take a lot of time. And that may be for somebody who's doing the academic studies or wanting to study academically. So I think definitely anybody can learn to become fluent, but it takes a lot of time and practice to do that. Hundreds of hours, hundreds upon hundreds.
How do you,
like we have a
go ahead. I'm sorry, there is a little bit of delay in the internet connection. And I think that's where we just get into each other's pumping question and answers. Tell us about how you start your lesson. Like assuming that you start your lesson at 9 or 10 a.m. Or in the afternoon.
Afternoons, normally, yes.
I've seen you in the classroom, and it's quite inspirational to see you teaching and engaging students, especially with the cat moving around, which is really lovely. But tell us how you start your lesson and what you focus on the majority of time, and how do you ensure knowledge gets transferred to the mind of students and then enable them to speak the language?
Right. Definitely. The first thing you do is try and just have the students relax in the classroom. They're coming from their busy schedules and busy days, and language learning can be very tiring and difficult. So when you come to class, I want students to be really excited to say, oh man, I'm going to English class today.
And I'm pretty sure you have good assets in that kind of psychological empowerment of students.
Exactly. and that it definitely, the social work that it plays into teaching, and that you can understand students, the ones that this is another subject, but you can read students. You can tell the really shy ones that are afraid to speak. You can tell the ones that, are very bold and can speak a lot, but maybe one that can't understand as well, their comprehension. So you learn to read your students, and you play upon their positives, their strengths, to help each other. So in the classroom, when they first enter, I want it to be relaxed. I want them to be excited entering, not sitting at home going, oh, English today, or should I stay home? Because there's a lot of traffic. So we do a lot of, maybe the first 15 minutes or so is just conversation, reviewing what they learned last class, but in production, in a fun way. Not like, okay, who can tell me give me a present perfect sentence? We're going to practice that in the class.
Okay. Now, how about sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to say, you were asking about elicitation, how to elicit from the students. And that's building their confidence, what we discussed earlier, and just making it a safe place for them to make mistakes in the classroom, and not like, oh no, that's not the way you say it. You can't say it that way. So you have to be, just understanding of what it's like to learn language.
Well, I mean, I don't know, but this is from my own observation as an EFL teacher here. I've been working as an English teacher for some time. And the concept of making mistakes has been stigmatized in terms of language learning, and specifically English, where it comes to telling people to make mistakes. There's this kind of psychological layer where there's some sort of association between the mistakes that they make in English and the sins that they commit in life. And probably
Absolutely.
there is a side of religious aspect to it, because the word mistake has some deep implications on of negativity. And this is where we say
Absolutely.
making mistakes um, can improve people's progress in language proficiency or fluency on the long run. But there is the psychological feeling that people have and undergo once we tell them, oh, you just made a mistake. I mean, I never say you made a mistake. I say
Yeah.
probably maximum no to some of the sentences, and or I can just recast that and then say, well, you said something that is correct in another occasion, not this one particularly. So how's your approach? What is your approach to deal with mistakes in terms of grammar? Because I know that some teachers are grammar Nazis when it comes
Absolutely.
to to correcting students.
Yeah. This is a tough question because there's different sides of correction,
Hmm.
right, in the classroom. As teachers, we know that. I try and take the middle ground. Making mistakes, actually, I know you're talking about culturally, it can be a
Of
big thing
course.
here.
Hmm.
Right, for sure. So if it's a huge error, I don't interrupt students when they're speaking.
Uh-huh.
Because when you, as a teacher, interrupt, and I've had students in class where I can tell that they have been overcorrected in their
Hmm.
language. How can you tell this? Because they're so busy up here translating and they're pausing so
Hmm.
much, you can tell someone has really been the one that's going, no, that's not it, that's not it. You shouldn't, I don't believe in interrupting students when they're speaking. Let them speak first. And then as a group, you can audit, whole correct. You
Hmm.
can just bring it up, or you can just repeat it back to them as a
Hmm.
question.
Hmm.
So you try and do it in a way, but I try and teach the students that you can tell when something in English doesn't sound
Hmm.
right to your ear. So I'm really trying to train and teach students that you correct yourselves. I may use hand motions for past tense, and that's one of the biggest errors I find here is definitely in past tense.
Hmm.
So like you said, you're concerned, making mistakes. Yeah, they have to learn from their mistakes. That's key, is learning from those mistakes.
Okay, great. And this leads me to my next question. What are your top 3 tips to Iraqi students to master English this year, particularly?
All right, so I'm going to give you the top tip, and it's probably, I'm going to say it 3 times
Yes.
because, can I start with a story? Do you have time?
Yes, for sure.
Is it okay?
Take as
One
much
thing
as you
I
like.
learned from Arabic, when I was learning Arabic, by the way, I speak a little bit, everyone, so
Hmm.
don't be too impressed. One thing I learned is when we're learning as babies, how do we
Hmm.
learn to speak our heart language, our native language? How do we learn?
By imitation, sometimes by listening to our mother and father.
Right. So the first thing we do is we're listening for
Hmm.
a year. I
Hmm.
don't have kids, sorry everyone, but for a year, we're listening.
Hmm.
And then what happens? What are we doing?
We start kind of imitating our parents and saying
Definitely.
simple words,
And are they
kind of
always the
babbling
correct
process.
pronunciation?
Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not correct, but through time, after listening more and speaking more, just practicing it, even though it's not perfect, we start
Hmm.
to learn.
Hmm.
So the next thing, grammar is going to be the last part that we learn, correct?
Hmm.
Because that's what we start in school. So for me, the key, well, if no one does anything in this area of learning language, listening. Listening, listening, listening. It is
Awesome.
key to our language.
Hmm. Great.
So
Are there any sources that you might think of when it comes to listening? Because there's ton of gigabytes of listening applications and audio recordings. How do you approach delivering listening where students can optimize their language learning based on the kind of sources that they have? Because, well, we're dealing with students. Sometimes we consider them as agents or clients. And when they ask us this kind of question, it's really tricky to recommend them to particular, trajectory in terms of their listening, because some of them might listen to
Right.
something within politics field, and they don't seem to be interested in that kind of theme or topic. So generally speaking, what kind of themes or what kind of tips do you have in terms of listening just to optimize their listening skills?
It's so funny you're asking this because how many times do we get asked this question as teachers, right?
Yeah.
The same question a lot. My students last night in class, we discussed the same tip about listening because this is my biggest advice. So
Uh-huh.
I am really big on podcasts.
Podcasts. Me too.
Yes, you can exactly. So you have to find, well, we know you said it yourself. Students need to listen to something they're interested in.
Hmm.
If we don't give our heart wholeheartedly to anything in life, then we're not giving everything we have to it and we're not enjoying it.
Let me say
So they
that in
need
Arabic
to,
because
when
it's
they
very
first start,
important,
they need
Carrie. Um, كاري ده
okay,
تقول
sure.
انه كاري ده تقول انه اذا تريد تتعلم الاستماع بطريقه افضل اللي هي مهاره، لازم تستمع الشيء مهم والى ارتباط بيك وانت مهتم بيه. اذا انت مهتم بيه راح يكون اهتمام، يعني راح يكون نسبه تعلمك واكتسابك لهذا الشيء افضل من انه تستمع الى شيء انت ما مهتم به. فابدي ادخل الى اللغه من هذا الجانب. Go ahead, Carrie.
Yeah. So podcasting is, for me, it's like the best thing I can tell students. You have movies, you have sitcoms, everything. All of those are great, Wally, but a lot of times we're doing other activities. But a podcast, you can always listen.
One of the reasons I really highly recommend podcasts over movies or sitcoms or soap operas or any other sort of work um, is that these big famous movies have been written by very talented writers, and they chose very specific kind of genre for their writing, with complicated texture,
Exactly.
with so much embedded puns and metaphors and cultural implications and political tendencies. So it's so much fraught with all of that reflects the image or the what do we call that kind of the feeling of people in this generation. But when it comes to podcast, people can just regurgitate whatever they want to say without any kind of script written. They can just say naturally
Exactly.
things. So this is the kind of not street language in a vulgar way, but the normal organic language that you hear from native speakers. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. And this is exactly what I was talking to the students about last night. Organic, authentic. With podcasts, the podcasters, and again, there's any subject you want. Like I'm into true crime. So I listen. I even before going to sleep, they say a lot of times listening before you go to sleep of the language helps you. I'm not sure how truthful that is, but I believe, it can help. So you can set a timer on your phone and get a podcast app. Any subject you want.
There
And
is
you can
also
hear
something.
two people talking back and forth naturally.
There's something else also I just want to ask you to comment a little bit about, and that is, the consistency of exposure to language, because people seem to have the sources, but they don't know how to manage time. So what do you have any kind of tips or things that you've come across that you think are really um, making students or learners abided by when it comes to learning?
Sure. If I tell you, okay, I want you to study 4 hours tonight, and every day I want you to study and listen to 4 hours worth, I can probably say most of the students are not going to be able to give me that, right? That's a lot, especially if you're working. So I put it back on the student. How much time are you willing? How much time can you do this? Choice. Give them the choice. Can you do it 15 minutes? Can you do it 20 minutes? Because once they start, guaranteed, once you start and you're listening to something or watching something you enjoy, that time will be longer and longer each time.
So step-by-step kind of process.
Give it what you can. If you say, exactly, that's language. Language is step-by-step. And we've discussed this with teachers a lot. People will come for one level and expect that because they're speaking to someone proficient in language like you in English, or like me, a native English speaker, that they'll be a level 12 and they're a level 5. You know, it doesn't happen that way. That's a special gift to be able to catch language that quickly.
How is
and that easily?
The ultimate question is, how is Global Language Institutes contributing? How is it contributing to spreading language learning positively? How do you contribute as an English teacher, making students learn what's unique about the center? And how is it making students learn language faster?
Okay, that's an easy question. And that it's all about passion.
I love it.
And it is about passion, right? If you have passionate teachers teaching you that love the language and love seeing you be able to produce it, to be able to speak, you know, without pausing, without even translating, that's really exciting.
Awesome.
And to see a student come in very shy and then they see you have passion, they're going to have passion too, if that is their heart. You know, if they really want to learn the language. Then, and so I think that's what sets GEI apart, is the teachers really have passion for language and for teaching. They want their students to grow. And we're not going to say, oh, you can go to level 10 just for a certificate. You know, it's like step by step. But you can do it. Anybody can learn. It just takes time.
Carrie, you're doing great and awesome job. You're inspiration to a lot of people, including your students, and I'm one of them. I've seen you working in the classroom, spreading very good positive energy to students, and this is the true passion. Even the word is abstract, but we can feel it, and feeling the word is coming from the magic of the teacher, that he puts all of the effort, the unseen effort, that the students don't know how much teachers struggle, even when they're taking showers, thinking of the lesson plan and what they are going to deliver to students and to learners, and including me, of course. So I really hail you for this amount of energy and this amount of positivity that you're sending and spreading among your students. Thank you so much. And thank you for accepting the invitation to talk about your experience and your background about language teaching and why you are passionate about it. Stay in touch. We are going to definitely have another round of meetings.
Great.
And probably I might come over, show up, and just have a class together where we can teach something interesting to your students.
Okay, you're on about that. And back at you, Waleed, too. I know with your program, you've reached, I have a lot of my Iraqi friends here that talk about your program and how much they're learning. So you keep teaching, and happy learning to everyone out there. And GEI is, you know, here for anybody that's interested, for sure.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Thank you so much
for accepting the
invitation. Thank you, and stay in touch.
Thanks for your encouragement. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.